Good time zone internet. Hello and welcome to Design Club, the only game design show on the internet that's late because we were too busy hyping about Silk Song and lost track of time. I am your humble Design Club host, Will, joined as always by my pal Geoff. Say hi to the people, Geoff.
Hi to the people, Geoff. Hey everybody, I am Geoffrey Zatkin, the studio director of Extra Credits and Extra History and longtime video game designer. And for the purposes of this talk, player of League of Legends for
too long.
A long time at this point. Joined as always by my humble co-host Will,
who's just a little excited about today's reveal. So if you can't see below, or you're watching this later, we are filming this at like a little after 2 p.m. Eastern on the 21st of August 2025, and that's important because like 3 hours ago, a little more than 3 hours ago, it got revealed that Silk Song comes out in 2 weeks after 7 years of waiting. So,
or in a year and 2 weeks.
Or in a year and 2 weeks. We're betting it's 2 weeks. So, very excited about this. I am in particular excited about Silk Song because Hollow Knight is one of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever had. And I'm super excited to get to have another whole world of bug-filled goodness to run around in and explore, and it looks great. So I'm very excited. But that's not why we're here today.
I'm actually kind of hoping it's 54 weeks, but that's just because.
Well, there's actually a really interesting Jason Schreier article that we'll talk about probably Monday, and we might talk about in brief later, about the fact that it took 7 years to make Silk Song because they were just having fun and they had infinite money. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. That's valid and reasonable. So good for Team Cherry. Anyway, today's topic is not that, though that is the current breaking news. Today's topic is another recent announcement, though not one by Team Cherry. It's by Riot about League of Legends. So Geoff plays League the way I play Magic, which is to say...
You don't have to be a League player for this one. This is going to be a more general sprawling design thing. It is an interesting industry thing that happens to be happening in League.
That is a very good clarification. Yes. So, Geoff plays League the way I play Magic, which is to say entirely too much, knows it entirely too well for his good. And, okay, great. So, we're going to talk a little bit about this, and why it's weird for League specifically, and also why this is a weird move in general. So the move...
And actually, weird for the game... This is going to sound initially like it's for one game, but it's happening because of a whole bunch of industry things.
Yes.
And it reflects on part of how the industry is evolving.
Yes. So, for those unfamiliar with League of Legends, first off, congratulations, you've escaped. Well done. I'm proud of you.
Number two, it is, Will, you have written, this can't be right, 16 years old?
That is correct, Geoff. You may now turn to dust. It released, yes. Yep. Released in 2009.
Wow. Okay. I have been playing for a while.
That's correct. You have. So it is a MOBA, a multiplayer online battle arena game in which 2 teams of 5 engage in combat in a map, farming up resources to knock down towers in 1 to 3 lanes of combat, and with the ultimate goal being destroying the enemy's core structure, in this case, the Nexus. The other very important thing to note is that because it's a MOBA, it inherits a lot of what makes it a game from RTSs. Because MOBAs, as a genre...
Real-time strategy games, RTS.
Are deeply, deeply reliant on some conventions from real-time strategy games because that's where they came from.
Yep. For those unfamiliar as well, MOBAs came out of a mod of Warcraft 3.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is
a custom map of Warcraft 3.
One of the famous games, like Counter-Strike, that started as a mod before becoming its own full, in this case, genre.
Yes.
Because there have been lots and lots of them.
Yeah.
At this point. And League and Dota are the lion's share, occupy like 95% of the space.
Yep. With the remainder being sort of fractionally split between like Smite,
maybe even 98% of the space. Like
Well, yeah. We got to talk about
overstate how big.
Yeah.
League was also one of the, and Dota after it, one of the early lifestyle games, meaning games that they wanted to, like MMOs, that they expect you to be playing for long periods of time.
Right.
And so we're always looking for supporting both the game as it is, but the game as it's going to be over long periods of time.
Right. So that all is incredibly relevant because League, up until this point, has had a click to move user interface. That is to say that you control a singular character 99% of the time. There are exceptions, of course, but you control a single character. And in order to move that character, you need to click your mouse on the screen where you want that character to go. You also
similar to Diablo, StarCraft, Age of Empires.
RTSs. Yeah.
Basically, the kind of clicky games and the RTS games. It's in what's called an isometric perspective, meaning you're not looking out of your character's eyes or a follow cam over them. It's kind of a looking down to see at a tilt so that you can see a lot of the map with the perspective that a 3/4 tilt gives you.
Correct. So, a lifestyle game with a control scheme that is unique to a specific genre of games, right? So there are people who've been playing for 16 years with this particular control scheme, with the idea that in order to move around the map, you need to click. Now, you also click for other things.
Abilities and target and everything else.
Yes. And the League team has recently come out and said, hey, we think that this thing, which is, I would argue, one of the most fundamental parts of a video game, the way that you play, like
interact with the game,
correct, is keeping people from returning to League or from getting into League for the first time. So we're going to change it. Or
we're going to add to it.
Yeah, we're going to offer another option, another alternative way that you can interact with the game in order to help those people play the game. And I think I'm of two minds on this. One, we're going to show you the little informational video from the actual team that's developing the WASD system to put into League, because we think they've got some really great things, and I think that they are doing this the absolute smartest way they possibly can. I also think this is a huge gamble because this is so incredibly weird.
And it doesn't sound like it on, it's like, they're adding, it's like, cool, you can point and click. Now you're going to be able to use your WASD keys and click. And the one little foreshadowing I'll give of how interesting this is before we dive into it is, imagine you're playing, say, Halo or Call of Duty on your Xbox, and they're like, hey, in addition to that, we're now allowing mouse and keyboard for your shooter game.
Right.
And you're like, wait a second. Mouse and keyboard is a little more accurate than my controller. How is that going to work? How is that going to be fair?
And the answer is, it's not. And there's a reason that they are now, this is actually, if you're unfamiliar, a problem in ranked console shooters, is that there are devices which can say, I'm a controller to the console, but are actually hooked up to a keyboard and mouse. You spoof a controller input, but actually use a keyboard and mouse to do it. And they are a huge problem, particularly for incredibly precise shooters like Rainbow Six Siege, which is a very tactical shooter. But the most important part for this conversation is all headshots always kill. You can't have a helmet thick enough to deflect a headshot. And so the game is very, like, there are people holding single pixel angles to try, and when that pixel changes color, they know an enemy has passed by it and they will get the headshot. Like, this is incredibly precise, and they're having a huge problem on console with keyboard and mouse players, right? So, and as a result of that, I'm like wondering how they're going to accomplish balancing this.
The other thing to know about League of Legends, if you're unfamiliar, is that League of Legends is one of the biggest esports in the world.
Yes.
It may be the biggest, if not, it's in the top three. It's
up there. I think the only other games that come close are Fortnite and Counter-Strike. I would say. StarCraft 2 might have, or StarCraft might have at some point, but has sort of collapsed in on itself and had its lunch eaten by
League
MOBAs.
has been like the premier esport or one of them for well over a decade at this point. Like esports came up in part because of how big League of Legends got. Like there are professional teams in a staggering number of regions at this point. When they hold their world finals or quarterfinals and invitationals, a lot of people tune in. Like it's Twitch like drains over to watch certain ones as Riot is live streaming. And so what that means is League or Riot has spent an extraordinarily amount of money growing their esports, and if you're good enough, you can play as a pro and make a living doing this.
Yes.
Like they have their own whole broadcast infrastructure in lots of different countries and regions. Riot has really done this. And so part of the reason we're so surprised on this is Riot has spent a long time trying to make sure that their game is one of the best competitive esports in the world. Fundamentally messing with how you interact with the game when you have that many professional players and that much money being earned is also a really interesting thing.
Yes. Yeah, you are upsetting a delicately balanced ecosystem by introducing a new factor, a new variant. Yeah.
So let's watch their announcement. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah. Okay, let's pull this.
Am I going to get small, Will?
I believe you will indeed get small. I need to add that thing to the other thing. Don't worry about what that thing is.
There you go. Push it up.
Okay, cool. Great. Awesome. Excellent. So, we won't be dealing terribly much with these two. They're just right before the two individuals that we're very excited about. Geoff, I think we're just going to let this go. I don't think we need to comment. It's pretty short. So, without any further ado, here's what the Riot team has to say.
You can expect.
Hey gamers, I'm Dashi Jador, the producer for WASD.
And I'm Dean, the designer for WASD.
We've been working on WASD for a while now, and we want to get it in your hands to test. Ultimately, our goal with WASD is to make playing League more intuitive for first-time players or those returning, without changing what makes League, League. That said, we're longtime League players ourselves and have been using point and click for years. So we've been working hard to ensure that both control schemes feel great across all ranks, champions, and modes.
In order to make sure that's true, we've been gathering tons of feedback from our internal playtest team, from brand new players, and from pro players at MSI. And now we're ready to get even more feedback from all of you. WASD is going to come to PBE in the next few patches, and it'll stay there for an extended run. We're taking a slower than usual rollout, where we'll start on PBE, we'll move to unranked queues, and eventually into ranked. Our goal is to make sure we have the time to gather feedback and act on it before a full release.
We're rolling it out this way because we want to make sure that we can catch any bugs, unintended interactions, and to ensure that your ranked games aren't disrupted by someone WASD-ing into walls.
We've discovered and resolved a lot of edge case scenarios while in development, so we're hopeful we got rid of the most atrocious bugs. One of the earliest bugs led to a few playtests where Nunu could do this sick 180 instantly while snowballing, and that unlocked a new fear for many of us. Now, let's talk about balance. Our goal is to make sure WASD is an awesome way to play League for the players who want it, but no one should feel forced to switch control schemes just to stay competitive.
One thing we'll be keeping a close eye on is how WASD affects balance between moving and attacking, especially at high attack speeds. With point and click, kiting or chasing someone down while attacking takes serious precision, and WASD controls can make this a lot easier.
This is something on everyone's minds, so we're going into PBE very aware of it, and we'll be ready to make adjustments if we need to.
Beyond WASD movement and improving the way the champion feels while in WASD, we feel there should be a few other things that can be improved for both control schemes. So we're making some updates to those spaces, like key binding and camera. For key bindings, we're exploring a lot more finite controls for players to be able to set whatever they want. For example, we'll let you bind the left click on your mouse without having to edit your system files for the first time in League's history.
We're also adding a new version of locked camera called Dynamic Locked Camera. It extends your view towards your mouse, and our hope is to get the simplicity of locked camera, but with some flexibility to see more of the action when you need to. Both of these updates are going to be locked to WASD at first, and the only reason we want to do that is to make sure all WASD-related features are in a great state before we roll them out to everybody. While WASD is on PBE, we'll be consistently shipping improvements and tweaks based on your feedback. We're still in an experimental state, so you'll likely see changes patch to patch.
And that's why we really need your feedback. So when WASD launches in a couple of patches, go to the PBE, try every champion, find the weirdest bugs, and tell us all about it. Seriously, some of you are some of the most creative and wildiest players out there, and we need you. So grab a friend, get to the PBE, and WASD your way down the rift. Make sure to give us feedback and help us make a fun control scheme for new players. That's it from us. If you want to learn more, you can check out the blog. It's out now.
All right. So I felt like, so I had like questions going in, and I feel like, by the way, this kind of video from Riot, along with like the patch notes and the style that they do them for League, phenomenal, right? Like, I'm not a huge fan
Riot
of League.
Communicates better than I think any other group I've ever seen, or any other game group.
And they really have to, because they have this, like you said, this very enfranchised player base, and they really need the trust of that player base. So
that covered a lot.
It did. So let's break this down. So the reason that Riot is doing this is
16 years in.
16 years in, right? Is that they are noticing a trend in the players. And that trend is that it is difficult for new players to get in and difficult for returning players to return, assumedly after playing other games for significant periods of time, and return to this, I'm going to call it archaic control style. And I don't know that that's fair, and I'm willing to like have a little fight over the word archaic, but it does feel like this is, League is in a very narrow slice of games that control in this fashion. It is, by virtue of its size, sort of the industry standard for MOBAs, but it is still weird compared to every other game.
I don't know. I mean, when I play Diablo or Torchlight, I still expect, like, there are certain games I expect to do that, or RTSs.
Sure. But when I play what I would argue is the most relevant current ARPG for like cutting edge ARPG design, and that would be Path of Exile 2, I also use WASD, because Path of Exile 2 also released with WASD controls. So they're moving in that direction as well. And I would argue, for Path, did a really good job with that. I felt much more comfortable playing Path 2 than I did playing Path 1, and it wasn't just a lot of the weird systems, right? So they have seen, like, from a game running or studio just running perspective, they've seen a trend that they think is significant enough that they're willing to invest a lot of time and money into seeing if they can add this to the thing. Yes.
They basically, because something like this, let me tell you, the team had to go, whoever was thinking about it, and they tossed it around, like, it had to be, there were a lot of people that had to sign off on doing this.
Yeah.
Straight up. Very high-ranking people in Riot.
Because
possibly all the way going up to the CEO.
Right.
Like saying, we're going to fundamentally add a whole new way that people can interact with the game that brings our studio in enough money to pay for all of these people.
And here's the other one. They can't really put this back now. Like, yes, it's in testing, and yes, it will be like in testing for, as they said, a very long time. We'll talk about their testing approach in a while. But from a community relations standpoint, I don't think they get to go back on this, because now they
could. I mean, they could 6 months from now be like, we tested this a lot. We don't think we're ever going to have a fair solution.
Correct.
So we're shelving it.
The problem is then that some portion of the new players that have joined in the intervening time and the players who've begun to adopt it will be unwilling to go back to the old control methodology. And
not if they keep it on the actually, let's talk about what a PBE server is, because that's a good starting point. If they kept it exclusively their will, I think they could pull it back. Once it goes to a live server, no. So most games that are things like MMOs or anything with competitive nature need to test it with real players in addition to their testing crew before they release it.
Yep.
This is fine if your game's not out yet. But if your game is out, usually there is a separate set of servers stood up where you, during development, upload your stuff to test it. Actually, you have your private test servers, and then you have this middle staging area, which is a place live people can go play on it before it actually moves over into the place everybody plays. This is always an opt-in system. You never accidentally end up on basically the check it out server.
Right.
That you're like, hey, I want to see the upcoming stuff.
And this is a long-standing practice in live service games. This goes back to EverQuest, does it not?
Yep.
Like, and before.
Yeah, we had these, had
like
almost staging servers have been around for 25 years for these kinds of games. Like, this is just how you do it.
Right. And there will be a cadre of players who are very interested in getting their hands on this thing first. And generally, by the way, on these servers, you're given extra, you level faster, get extra currency, get cool shiny things to play with as sort of an incentive to do it, unless you're testing something that would be broken by all of those things to help incentivize players to play in a different cool environment.
Yeah.
So there are
a lot of players, look to me, there is a portion of the player base that really enjoys getting to play with and break the new things.
That is also very true. Yes.
That community is very, very important to the health of a long-term game like this. So anyway, when they said they're going to move it to the PBE server, what they're saying is, we're not putting this live. We're putting this on the place that people can test it.
Yes.
So that's a very important step.
And then well, they've said that once they're done with an extended period of this private test server thing, that they're then going to roll it out exclusively for unranked games. Yeah. Games where the end result does not have permanent consequences on your win-loss record, right? Like, people care about winning and losing in unranked, but not in the same way that they do in ranked.
Yeah. And for those unfamiliar, again, mini MOBA games and other kinds of games with competitive playing have some sort of matchmaking that is based on player skill that they then make visible. And they're like, hey, you're a silver level player or a gold level player, or, different games do it in different types of metal or gem or other ranking style, but they rank you. And almost every game that does that has the ability to play ranked or unranked. In other words, like, oh, you just want to go mess around with your friends? Go play unranked. You want to do it for your bragging rights of how good you are? Go play ranked. And people invest a lot in that, what their rank level is and other things. And they don't want that messed with.
Correct. Because that would damage one of the very sort of nebulous concepts that has concrete consequences for live service games and for lifestyle games, and those broadly overlap but are not wholly the same thing, in my opinion, is disrespecting the player's time. If you disrespect a player's time, because that's really the investment that you're asking for from them, to be a daily player, to incorporate your game into their routine, if you disrespect their time, they tend to not take it well, and it's easier to accidentally do that than it is to disrespect their dollars, because companies have like very clear data on like the dollars part, right? When like there are some pretty clear rules on that, but disrespecting time is a little easier to do accidentally. So it sounds like they've got so this is a very safe rollout. This is a very methodical, very safe, it
is very methodical. We'll see how, and they're doing it as safely as they can. But so like backing up for a second, because we kind of jumped ahead because I wanted to say what the PBE is they've basically said, we think to continue to stay competitive in this market, and competitive in this market also means continuing to attract new players.
Yes.
We need to make a fundamental change. Here they've been doing it for a while, obviously. They've been gathering information in private tests. They said they were talking to pro players, and they've gotten it to the point where they're now actually announcing it to the public and putting it on the PBE server, where they haven't said when it's coming off. They've said it's there for an extended period of time. But
I would say 6 months minimum.
We'll see. Yeah. Like, I have no idea what that is. So that is the move that they're doing, and the why, which is they think they need this to stay competitive. And a little bit of possibly fresh.
Yeah.
League is actually very good at trying to keep it reinventing itself. They have extensively tuned over their 16 years, over 16 seasons, how the game is played, adding and subtracting and modifying bits of it. So it still feels roughly like the same game. But if you were playing in season 8 or season 11, those are going to feel a little bit different. Yep. And that's part of the reason they've had such longevity, is they continue to refresh and update their game in addition to adding new champions.
I will say that I think that the best way to encapsulate that notion is that League's biggest competition is not another game, it's churn. So churn is the process by which every day a number of players, a number of people will stop engaging with a kind of media simply because it doesn't fit their life anymore. This happens for every game that tracks daily player statistics and every other kind of media, every YouTube channel, every cable network, if those still matter, right? Every TikTok user, right? Every kind of media experiences churn to some degree. And so I would say that I think that they're acutely aware. I would say that League is probably very acutely aware of their churn rate, and that this that's the other side of this, is that they're not worried that someone's going to eat their lunch. No one can eat League's lunch. League's lunch is too big. But they will slowly lose parts of their lunch as players churn out. And so doing something like this...
And the seagulls and pigeons swoop in.
Correct. Doing something like this does two things. One, it changes the churn rate, right? There will be people who don't leave because this is a new and interesting thing for them to do. And there will be people who return. So they're increasing the influx rate and decreasing the rate of churn out. And I think this is a smart way to do both of those things without doing something that, like, I can't say more fundamentally, but like changes the game's identity in a way that's more visible on screen, if that makes sense, right? They can't make something newer or flashier or a new champion or something like that to do this amount to the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually one final thing before we kind of dive into it. In the same way that like World of Warcraft spikes in daily active players after they put out a new expansion, putting out a notable thing is a great way to get people to come back and check in on a thing.
Yep.
And if you've had a game that's been going for this length of time, reactivating any number of lapsed players is also an invaluable thing.
I think that's very true.
There's a lot of things that they could get out of this, but there's also a lot that could go wrong. So we kind of laid out the general.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little more specifics.
Yeah. So you mentioned mouse and keyboard versus controller.
Yes.
I think this is a bigger move than that. I think that's one of the only roughly analogous moves that like we can compare it to. I think this is moving from touchscreen to controller. And I mean like single, like stylus touchscreen, not the kind of touchscreen that some mobile games have where you have fake joysticks, right? I'm sure you've seen these, Geoff, where like the lower left and lower right corner become virtual joysticks that you can use to control the game. And the reason for that is that whether I'm doing forward and back on a mouse or up and down on the right stick on a controller, I'm controlling the character's motion in the same general way. I'm already doing the same forward, back, turn left, turn right. The device I'm using to do it is different, right? But I'm still manually controlling each step that my character takes in a path, right?
So let's talk about this for a moment. I'm going to use the back of an iPad.
Sure.
Because I need a surface to play this on. But we talked for a minute about mouse, like for a shooter game on a console, introducing a mouse and keyboard is an unfair advantage, because when you're holding a controller, the preciseness that you have with your thumbs is different than the fine granularity that a mouse can move back and forth, especially when you're trying to aim in a very precise shot. And honestly, it also bounces around a little less when you're moving your controller. The fact of like your movement with one thumb does actually move the actual controller, which means you have to be compensating.
And there's a spring, right? Just like the return to center motion has a spring, and that doesn't exist in a mouse.
And this isn't bad in any way. Like controllers are great, but if you're looking for absolute precision, a mouse is just going to be more accurate. And there is no competition on that. Like,
correct.
It is a stated fact in gaming. A mouse is going to be more accurate than a controller.
Right. And
but Will is right on a fundamental level that both the controller moving around and the mouse are how you interact with basically aiming your gun in a shooter. In a MOBA, for those unfamiliar, if you see say your character is sitting in the middle of your screen, how you interact with the mouse is you're like, I want you to go here. And whether you click here, here, or here, your character starts moving in that direction usually from the center of the screen. And if you're like, oh, go this way, you have to then click on the other side. So if you want to, you also interact with an object by clicking on it. So if you're here and you're like, I want to move this way and then cast a spell on this guy, you click to move, you click to cast, and if you want to then alter your movement, you click back over here, or maybe you want to start going forward. So part of how this interacts is your mouse is constantly going back and forth. And if you're navigating a fight quickly, as the video said, like trying to do something like retreat while targeting enemies and shooting, has you moving your mouse back and forth, in addition to hitting keys very quickly. And honestly, some people, including myself at my age, are not as quick and precise as they used to be when, say, they were 18 or 20.
Right. And I think, so we can think of the mouse's position as a resource here, right? The mouse has to be where you want to be and where you want to target and where you would like to skill shot, which means that it takes a lot of control to do all three of those things at the same time. I'm retreating and I'm firing off a rooting skill shot to cover our retreat, and I'm also trying to auto attack someone to apply my slow or whatever.
It covers movement and targeting.
Yes.
With the same interface.
Correct.
Actually, with the same hardware device.
Yes. So by splitting those up,
right,
by still having a mouse
because what we're talking
cursor,
about is divorcing movement from targeting. Because what WASD is it's movement.
Right. And
so, like, the initial concern, and Will's gonna like back me up, is if I used to be doing this going back and forth, and suddenly I don't have to be doing that. I am moving with my fingers. So this movement part is gone, and I'm just like click, click, click. It's a lot easier to keep clicking on my target if I'm not having to go back and forth and do movement or other things around it.
Yes.
Like there's a position called ADC right now, which is a very high rate of input click to both move and attack.
Right.
I am not fast enough to play a good ADC in a highly competitive environment. With WASD, I might be.
Yes. So there is another highly competitive field of video games which experience something analogous to this exact thing, and it's fighting games. I forgot to mention this when we did this, but there are three general kinds of control schemes for fighting games, two of which are equivalent and one of which is not. Controllers are just like an arcade fight stick. So if you're familiar with a fighting game in an arcade, I'm sure Geoff played a lot of them back in ye olden golden days of
Street Fighter 2, buddy. That was my jam for a long time.
Right. Okay. So you have a stick and some buttons that control what you do. There's another and that's just like a controller, right? You have a stick that controls the motion of your character and some buttons that do
by stick,
inputs.
we mean literally a thing that sticks up that you're pushing and moving around.
Yes. There is also a device called a hitbox, which removes the stick and replaces it with 4 directional buttons. So you can have an up, down, left, right, like WASD, on a physical box. And there have been problems with that because they had to certify for a while that you couldn't both be inputting left and right on the hitbox at the same time. Because the problem is that if you do that and then you let one of them up, your character will immediately move in the other direction, a thing which you cannot do with a physical stick, because the physical stick has a transit time, just like your mouse has a transit time.
Your physical stick is binary. It is pointing in one direction.
Correct.
Well, actually, it's not quite it is either going left or it isn't.
Right. But it has travel time. You might think that travel time is insignificant. It's a control stick. How long can it take to move? In high-level fighting game play, a reminder that windows of opportunity to perform actions are measured in frames. They're not measured in seconds. They are measured in frames. So every advantage matters. And similarly, there are some very narrow, tight shenanigans windows in League that need to be accounted for. And that's just one minor part of this idea of divorcing movement from targeting that we're talking about here, right? That now I will be very interested to see whether you can hold A and D, and if you do, what happens. Right? Mm-hmm. Do I go nowhere? Do I continue to move in the direction that? Do I continue to move left? Do I continue to move right? What happens? Right?
Yeah. Does it make me spin?
Does it make me? Yes.
And part of what we're wondering too is they're saying WASD, but like, are there going to be diagonals, or are you going to hold W and A at the same time to go up or left diagonally? Because they're going to need to take most likely multi-button input on this. Like, we could start delving into the how you do design on it, but in some cases that's less important than this huge concept of divorcing the movement from the selection.
Yes.
Because that used to be one thing, because that fundamentally decreases the amount of mouse clicks and the accuracy of the mouse clicks you need to be doing.
Wait, okay, so and both of those things are good and bad, right? Less accurate with mouse clicks, probably not great. Lowering the skill floor, maybe, which is a desirable thing to have in a highly competitive game. You want the skill floor to be at a certain level so that people feel like they're on an even playing field, right? And on the other hand, I'm not wearing these today to make a point, but like, I've played too many games and my hands hurt. I'm getting old, right? I can play on a controller, which is real useful because I'm playing Elden Ring right now, and they don't hurt as much. But when I raid in 14, a thing which is highly mouse click, mouse button intensive, my hands hurt. So there's positive and negatives here to this, right? Reducing number of clicks is good, but lowering the skill floor might not be. Right?
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like thinking about it, as I get older and play games, I have actually in League started selecting champions that I can do less clicks per second. Yes. Like, I'm selecting ones that have basically higher impact per click.
Yes.
And that is an actual choice. Like, my strategic play is still pretty good, and my reflexes for my age are still pretty good. But again, they don't compete when I might have been almost pro level when I was 20.
Right.
Like, there's a difference on that, and it's a noticeable thing. And so part of saying we're introducing this is also opening this up for a wider range of players to play more competitively.
Yeah.
But what they also don't want to do is disenfranchise players who don't want to make the switch.
Correct.
Because that was one of the other things they said is we want people to play without feeling like they need to switch over to a new scheme and relearn the game to be competitive.
Right.
And by relearning, like, most people know how to operate a WASD. Not all do, but let's assume most do. But also, you have a lot of muscle memory for a game like League of Legends. League of Legends currently uses the 4 top keys, Q, W, E, R, for your 4 abilities, your 3 regulars and your ultimate. They also use other keys like the S key to stop moving, the A for an attack move, use the number keys to use activated items in your inventory. There's a lot of binding around there. So the fact that, I have my mouse for selecting targets, but I'm using the keyboard for mouse for moving and targeting, I'm still using the keyboard to select which thing I'm doing at the moment. Do I want to pop a potion before I use my Q skill shot and then drop a ward, now cast my shield spell as the thing comes in? Like, if you change WASD to be the middle of where all the other controls used to be, it also means players are going to have to relearn where all of that is. And that's not the end of the world, but what you're telling somebody is, a game you've been playing a while, you're going to have to relearn it because we just made a big change.
Yeah. And
if you think you have to switch to it.
And the other, of course, issue here is, as Geoff has just described, this isn't flat. Right? And they even admit this, right? That some roles like ADC, a notoriously attack heavy, micro movement heavy.
Designed to be that way.
Yeah, it's designed to be that way. Players who play that role will probably feel differently, potentially more, but we'll go with, for certain, differently motivated to change control schemes than someone who might play support. Right? Even though they're in the same lane, even though they're usually in the same fights, the
supports usually have more activated items, for example, than ADCs do. which means they're hitting different buttons.
Yeah.
You even have some ADC, like, I'm curious to see what they're going to do. For Callista has non-standard movement on click, one of their ADCs. Like, there's all sorts of weird edge cases. Let's not even get into it.
Anyway.
She has non-standard movement.
Yeah.
So I'm actually a little bullish on this for my own personal play. Like, there's actually a thing, if when you start playing League, I'm just going to use this as a small story to kind of go along. When you click, say, A to use your ability, it lights up your targeting reticule, and the next thing you click on, you use your A ability. They have a setting called smart casting, where basically if you turn it on, whatever your mouse is hovering over when you hit A, it's just considered an auto confirmation. So they're eliminating the must click to confirm part. The advantage to this is it's quicker. The disadvantage to this is it's quicker. Like, whatever your mouse is over, that's what you're doing it on.
Yep, you can absolutely screw this up.
Competitive people switch over to this at some point when they're playing. Switching over to this always gives you a certain amount of time learning period where you are retraining yourself on the game, that you don't have to click to confirm everything. It just happens as you click it. And again, it's kind of that muscle memory thing. But every competitive player, and even most casual players I know, have switched over to this because at a certain point, they're just like, I want to be quicker. I know where my mouse is. I don't have to confirm everything. And so it's a step you go through in League. This reminds me a little bit of, if they do this, it's going to be like that again. But people went through that because they said, oh, this ends up being a better result.
Yes.
I'm going to be really curious a year after whenever this releases to see, when Riot publishes, how many people are now using this system versus others.
Yeah, it'll be, and if it differs by region, Final Fantasy XIV has two major control schemes, even though they're both WASD/controller. One of them is called Legacy, and one of them called Standard. Doesn't matter what the difference is. What matters is that in Japan, the overwhelming majority of the player base uses Legacy and almost no one uses Standard. And in Europe, almost everyone uses Standard and no one uses Legacy. And in North America, it's split, if I recall correctly from the last survey, right? So that's very interesting, right? That like it's also regional dependent, and the data here will be beyond fascinating when they do release it. What is South Korea doing? Yes.
Help set the stage. For those unfamiliar, South Korea, at least for MOBAs, has the most competitive players in the world.
Yes.
Hands down, to the point that players get drafted out of South Korea to go play in other regions. And they had to start putting drafting rules on, which is that I believe currently for every player, teams are 5 players, at least you're only allowed 2 imports per team.
Yeah.
That you field at a time.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be fielding at least 3 people that are actually from that region.
Yes. Yeah. So they also haven't addressed all of the minutia, which leaves me with questions, which we could get into but don't have to, about, because like I just described with Legacy and Standard, WASD is also not a monolith. And will the changes be possible? So let's talk about it this way. I'm on my 4-axis grid, right? My 4-axis up, down, left, right, and those could all correspond to a key. So if I press W, I go up. If I press S, I go down. If I press A, I go left. If I press D, I go right. Sorry, that's mirrored for you all because camera. Or are A and D turn left and turn right? And is W move forward or move up? And if it's one of those, can we choose to have it be the other? Is it balanced for both of those, right? This is kind of a weird question, right? But it really matters because some people are used to A and D pivot the character, turning them in a direction, which is a balancing factor, by the way, because like Nunu's 180 snowball from hell, they want to control the turning radius, right? Or is it simply that some combat, like if I'm moving down and to the left, I press A and S and my character will turn and get there eventually, right? How is this going to function?
And will they have to support multiple, like if their goal is bring in people and be familiar, like one of the things they might have to do for balance, for example, is say that, you know, A and D are actually turned.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who play games that they're going to come in and like, this isn't how it's supposed to work.
Correct.
Like I'm going to be really curious on how they do it, because if one of their goals is instant familiarity for people who play other kinds of these games, they also only have a certain amount of leeway before it becomes unfamiliar.
Yes, that's correct. And then they lose the very advantage that they are trying to gain to retain and cause players to re-enter their game, right? So they have to be like something, but every time they're like something else, it's going to cause its own brand of problems. Also, it's called WASD movement. Typically, not always, typically, Q and E are also options in there. It's actually QWEASD, because you can use Q and E to do other like motion things. So like if A and D are sidestep, Q and E are pivot. There's all kinds of options here. We don't have the data yet, but
or sometimes lean, depending upon the game.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, lead around a corner to My point is simply this. When we think about this and we talk about this, it's not just as simple as the first thing that probably came to your mind when we said the league was getting WASD controls, right? This is a very big, very weird problem that they've just decided that they're going to leap in and solve, right? I have every confidence that they're going to come up with a cool and interesting solution, but man, is this a bigger problem than it looks like on the surface.
Yeah, like it's funny. The very first instance when I heard him talking about it, I'm like, oh, that's a change. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, that's a change. Oh, that's a bigger, that's a really big change.
Yep. And it won't be like, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, it won't be like, it probably won't be like MMO controls, because MMO controls assume that your mouse is controlling the camera and that you have sort of a 360. That's true of both WoW and 14. So the camera...
Hey, Will, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Our Kickstarter just passed 70,000.
I wasn't going to do it because I knew you were going to... Someone mentioned it in chat, and I wasn't going to mention it because I knew you were going to get distracted. I was going to bring it up again.
I had to go look. And it's actually spiking. It's already at like 70.7. Like,
yeah. Well, that's because people are going to get puzzles. People are going to get puzzles.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
We announced puzzles with it. And it's also like, for those watching, if you happen to be watching and are interested, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern is when it stops.
Yes. So we'll be live.
It is over.
We'll be live
we are in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about after. But yeah, it was just sorry, Kat was posting in Discord. And I'm like, what's, oh.
Yep.
We've been working on this a while, so it's fun to see number go up.
It really is. It's great. So back on this. So we talked a little bit how weird it is for the player, right? How they're going to need to adjust to all of these different, like the way that they interact with the game and with their character, right? From a competitive standpoint, and just from even from the most casual players, from a comfortable standpoint, right? If you've been playing the same game for 16 years and it's this way, it's going to be difficult to do it a different way. Even if that other way is on the surface intuitive to most players, you have 16 years of unlearning to do, and that's a lot of unlearning, right? If you want to change to something else.
Though, as long as it's a familiar scheme that they end up with, it should be a quicker transition.
I agree.
I'm actually interested in what this does to their development as well.
Yes,
because
let's talk about that.
They're literally going back to like 170 characters at this point and being like, okay, we designed these with this set of assumptions in mind.
Right.
And it's going to be a case by case, ability by ability checking to see what's happened. But it also means for one of the things League has done is, as League has gotten older, they've gotten more ambitious with the kinds of characters that they create, because they can now basically take longer between them and they have more resources devoted to not just the art, but the programming and the interactions and everything behind them. But again, we now have an entirely new thing, which is you're going to have multiple ways to control them. So I'm curious as well for some of what they were brainstorming up or even had on their future roadmap. Because again, it doesn't sound big, but not having to go click, 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 click to do an interaction, but instead it's just control here, click, changes the kinds of things that you might have been thinking about putting in. Because again, they're going to have to support both.
Right.
They're moving to a forever forward future where both styles of interaction have to be able to work seamlessly and well with every new ability they put in, as well as retrofitting everything they've done before.
Yeah. Which, the amount of work that they have signed up for here is bananas. Like, This is one of the most interesting, like, fundamental level changes to a game that I can imagine them choosing to make that sounds so simple and is so very not.
Yeah. This is the rabbit hole of rabbit holes.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's turtles all the way down.
Correct. And I do wonder, like, I have to wonder, are pro players going to switch between control schemes for different... So all of these are options. Are pros going to pick a control scheme and stay with it? Are pros going to change between control scheme based on which character they're playing?
That will be my guess.
On which role they're playing, or the last one and the weirdest one, and one we've seen before in professional games of a different kind, is depending on which phase of the game they're in. That's entirely...
Oh, that's right.
That's entirely...
You should tell this story.
Yeah, okay. So, for a very long time, there was a problem in Apex Legends. Apex is a battle royale game, and Apex's problem is that they could not balance multiple control schemes on PC. Now, I want to be clear. This was all on PC. All of this was above board. Nobody was cheating. All of these control schemes were allowed and approved by Apex. Okay? Great. Awesome. Excellent. So the problem was that there were parts of the game for which a controller and the aim assist afforded specifically to controllers was better than the mouse and keyboard thing, because the aim assist was in a place where it was more powerful for things like shotguns that don't demand precision control. You just kind of have to be vaguely in the area of their head, and then you just unload with buckshot, right? Great. Excellent. Awesome. So pros were playing with both. And sometimes pros were playing with the movement of one and the aim of the other. So you would use movement controls on the controller with your left hand and aim with your mouse on the right. And you ended up with all of these like weird hybrid hand cam things for a while until they tried to stop it, right? That is an option. That is a world that we could end up in, right? This could get so incredibly weird because, and I kind of hope that it does, and here's the simple reason why. Jeff's talked about this before. Every time you add more players to a thing, every time more people see a thing...
Oh, the rule of zero? My rule of zero?
Yeah, your rule of zero. Something changes, breaks, you find a new problem, you find a new strategy, whatever, right? I give it like a solid week before a pro is like, yeah, so I just, after first back in laning phase, it's advantageous to swap control schemes for this reason, and then you do this, or like... junglers do the first clear on one control scheme, and then when they go gank, they swap to the other one while they're backing, because while you're backing, you have time to go into menus and swap control schemes, and you're not using a new device. It's just a setting. Is there going to be a thing that prohibits you from changing mid-match? Why would they do that? It's just a control scheme. If they're balanced, there's no reason to.
Will you be able to have a hotkey that swaps control schemes?
Yes, that is a great question, Jeff. That is the question of the hour. Can I press like home on my keyboard?
Control P to...
Right, and swap control schemes, right? We are off the edge of the map. Here there be monsters potentially, right? I do think though that the Bull has a really great point. This is a really great point. My fear is that the change will be so small that people don't understand why they can't compete anymore. Big changes are easy to see. Small changes like this can be a slow poison. I agree with that. I agree that the incremental advantage is small because, like with the ADC example, if it's only, let's say that it is universal across the board, every pro player is 2% better on WASD movement than click to move as an ADC. That means it's mandatory, by the way. That 2%, that means it's mandatory for ADCs. That means there is no choice, right? Because we're dealing with, again, the smallest margins, the itty-bittiest fractions. There are pro games that get decided by one missed CS, like that snowballs into an inescapable advantage, and that's the end of the game, right?
And here's the other one along that line. So, Will, say for a moment that I'm a pretty good tactical player at League of Legends.
Yeah.
And that my reflexes are good, but if they were basically 5% better, that I think I could move up a whole, like, silver to gold, gold to platinum, whatever. In other words,
one tier.
It isn't my map sense and tactics or builds or champion knowledge or anything else that's holding me back. It is purely that I'm not as fast as I used to be.
Right.
Will something like this reorder where people end up? In other words, maybe I'm playing tactically at a platinum level, but my reflexes have me at a gold level. And that's the thing. Like, I'm going to be curious if there's a whole shakeup in what ranks people end up at. Will a whole bunch of people that used to be gold now be silver because other people have caught up to them on the little bit of the advantage, and these players that were gold, their game sense wasn't good enough. Like, I'm going to be there. That slow poison might be for reasons other than people think. It might be that some players get better because this control scheme works better for them, and their game and map and tactics knowledge elevate them now, and that actually pushes other people down because this is a zero-sum gain kind of thing. More wins from other people might mean less from you.
Also, let's talk about another thing that's really, I think is really important. In the same way that it might make someone who's already good at the game better, reminder that WASD controls are potentially a way that it will make the game accessible to people for whom it was physically inaccessible before, which means that part is just good, right? The more people should play video games. Now, whether or not all those people should play the league is a different story, but, like, neither here nor there. Right? Because many accessibility controllers depend on rebinding WASD inputs to a specific device, right? That is a thing that has been sort of talked about as a way that accessibility controllers can sort of easily slide into a game, is being able to do that. And now mouse input is used for one thing instead of for two things. So now there's more impact to being able to use an accessibility controller for your left-handed stuff. And you might be able to use eye tracking, mouth stick, whatever for your mouse. And that's really important. I
was actually trying to see if I could find it real quick. There was somebody I watched years ago. What was his name? He was just one of those people that was so fast and so good. He used to make videos about him doing, like, crazy things with high click characters like LeBlanc and others. Where one time he hooked up a Guitar Hero controller and played League with a Guitar Hero controller and did okay.
Yeah.
And you're just watching me like,
yes.
You know.
Yeah. And people in chat are indeed suggesting ideas like, let's play with a DDR pad and a Wiimote. Don't tempt me. I'm old, I will break, but don't tempt me, right? So, or that there isn't, I like this idea that Cyber Mermaid brought up, right? That the movement of a controller and the aiming of a mouse, like some hybrid between and a third-party device that could accomplish both of those, is something that they're seeking for other games, right? I don't know. Geoff, you would know better than me. What are the gear requirements for current League esport? Is there, like, specific mice and keyboards that are allowed and approved?
I know that every mouse and keyboard brought in, you actually, as a pro player, you bring them in to basically the competition area and they stay there. So, like, if you're in League of Legends playing weekly as a pro player, you actually leave your gear there. You can bring in replacements, but all of it is checked to make sure that it's not loaded with extra goodies. but I don't know what the exact requirements are. Like, mouse can't have more than X buttons or other things like that.
Yeah, there is, for instance, it hasn't been useful up till now. There's a left-handed keyboard replacement that has been made from time to time. This might actually cause a resurgence of it, where you essentially have a joystick on your left thumb and then a full suite of what would be 1 to 5 and Z to B on your keyboard, accessible only to your left hand. And that might see major use now because it lets you use your thumb for WASD and lets you keep, because they're all rebindable keys, it lets you keep the muscle memory of which ability goes where. So imagine if you could have W1 and W2 be used for different things. Like the limit here, again, with third-party peripherals, different controllers, and accessibility options is limitless at this point, right? Because before, League had I'm going to put this in air quotes, simple control scheme, right? I click, I go to a place, I click, I aim a thing, I click, I do a thing. That's pretty simple, straightforward. I press a key, something happens, I click to confirm, we're done, right? It feels less so now, and maybe I'm just extrapolating too far, but it feels like this is a really big can of worms.
It's interesting too, because I was just thinking about, there's certain games, especially like fighting games, where macros are a big thing. Like macroing in a slide for a fireball.
Yeah, quarter circle. Yeah.
League, the way it's set up, doesn't lend itself to macros because there are no, like, with your mouse, click in a circular pattern to make thing happen.
Yeah. You'd have to do like glyphs or something, like click and drag on screen, which is just awkward.
Yeah, there's almost nothing like that in the, they've done pretty good about keeping a click or a point style interface. And so I was just thinking too, because with hardware or different input schemes opens up possibilities of like macros and other things, but I don't think, anyway, there's lots of issues that they're going to have to think about. And they'll never be able to enforce it for anything except pro play.
Right. Which means that the ideal solution, by the way, is to get them as close to balanced as possible. Right. And as close to balanced as possible is probably like sub 1% difference between the two, if at all possible. Right. Which is a tall order, but in fairness, the League team is pretty on the ball with balancing most things. Yeah.
They're actually surprisingly good at that.
Yeah. For a game that has 170 characters plus how many items at this point? Like 100?
100 plus.
Right.
They continue the changes per season.
Right. In 6 slots. So you have to consider all of the permutations of every unique item in each of those 6 slots with every one of those 170 heroes. Good luck. Have fun, balance nerds.
Yeah. That's what spreadsheets are for, Will.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So there's sort of
it's interesting. Like, I don't think if you hadn't been like lurking around listening behind the scenes, I don't think you ever would have seen this one coming.
Yeah, I agree. There's sort of a corollary to this, which I did want to bring up because I think it's really important. We talked about a little earlier how the control scheme for a game is one of the most fundamental parts of it, right? It is the way that the player interacts with the game to make the choices that playing the game asks of them, right? So, for instance, Magic Arena, pretty simple control scheme because the choices are pretty simple. I play a card, right? And then I direct it at a place, which means that there's not a lot of difference between a touchpad input and a mouse and keyboard input because the interaction is very simple. And that's also true of other card games. Like there are mobile versions of Ascension and Uno and Slay the Spire and Monster Train and all of these other games, but their interactions are pretty simple. When we get into more difficult things, it feels like more and more affordances, more and more what the game does, more and more actions that the player can take are based on the limitations and strengths of the control scheme. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fundamental interaction. And some of that, too, there's a lot of design that goes into that, even if it doesn't seem like. I was talking to Will when we were talking about this, about someone's like Slay the Spire is really interesting in that the sum total of player interactions during combat, short of clicking on yourself or the monster to see what buffs or debuffs it has on it, is you select a card, and whether it's with your mouse or your finger for a touchpad, like these transition really well because it's select a card and it's lift it. If the card just does something, like it adds defense, you drop it in the middle of the screen. If it targets, you drag it over the monster. Same with potions. And that's your interaction. You can't rearrange your cards. You usually only have one target. There's one fight total in Slay the Spire. Excuse me. There's one fight total with monsters on either side of you. And there's 5 monsters total is the most you ever get in a fight. And that has custom placement for Rectomancer.
Reptomancer is one, and then Gremlin Gang can you can have
the Gremlin Gang.
You can have slimes in Act 1. There are a couple of Act 1 fights.
Most you can get is 4.
Yes. Can you get 5 slimes? If you split weird, I think you can get 5 slimes in one thing, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's not very many, and it's custom placement.
Maybe but anyway,
we haven't played Spire in too long. Also, Spire 2 when? Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but like it's an amazingly simple. Like they thought about that a lot, and they're part of the reason that game does so well is how simple. Like once you learn to interact with it, how simple it is, and you just understand how it works. Like you spend all your time learning other things, not learning how the controls. And I'm going to take a slightly different game like FTL, which is a fun game, but there's a lot more for most people. Pause, click, look at number, look at menu, put in a couple things. Like you interact with it in a different way.
Yeah.
I would say it is not as smooth of a game on there. Balatro, one of its strengths is kind of the same. It has a easy to understand control scheme, which is you're playing a card. And the other one is you're rearranging your jokers.
Yep, that's it. I'm buying things out of the shop.
Yeah. And so part of how the game chooses to do, like its possibility space based on that, there's a lot of background design that goes into what can you interact with it? How do you interact? Does it all have the same control scheme, different? Can you do it all at the same time? Is it limited? You can only do this during combat and this during between. Like a lot of those choices really reflect on how you interact with the game.
Yes. Yeah.
And make the game what it is. And they also make it more or less easy to switch between hardware, going between like a console, a PC, a phone, a tablet, a TV, a browser.
And when it's done poorly, we often feel that friction, that pain, right? How many of you have in either direction, played a PC port of a console first game and found that the keyboard controls were lacking and that you really did need to plug a controller in order to play a game on your PC? Or the other direction, you played a console port of a PC game and found yourself constantly lamenting the keyboard. Looking at you, Civilization, I still don't understand how Civilization really works on I don't get it. It scares me. I'm going to be honest, Geoff, that one just scares me, right?
Actually, for a long time, there were no console RTS games because the point and the lasso selection of troops was so integrated into how the fundamental concepts of the game worked. And nobody found a good remapping onto controllers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and it works in positive directions too, right? Kind of positive directions. When I played Monster Hunter Wilds, right, we did a whole episode on the controller-oriented character creator. They did one of the most beautiful, complicated character creators I've seen in any action game ever. And it's all fundamentally built to be completely accessible to controller players. It is a, wild triumph of UI, UX, and character design. It's bananas, but it doesn't work as well on keyboard, right? So it's great but also there are drawbacks, right? And those are reflective of the thought process that they had in mind building around a particular control scheme.
Yeah. And chat's bringing up a couple of RTS examples, but like all of those there were interesting, but also did like 2% of the numbers of what other RTS games were doing on non-consoles, because again, it was so hard.
I actually think the best example from chat is Brutal Legend.
Weirdly. Oh yeah, Brutal Legends was good for that.
Brutal Legend was great for that because it was also a third-person action game. Because at
different times.
To very different times. Brutal Legend is probably, by the way, one of the best games that got shot in the foot so hard by its own marketing that you might never have heard of it. Wild time. But yeah, like it is difficult to build games for control schemes that don't accommodate the high concepts that the game is trying to accomplish. Which is why, again, it's so bizarre to me that 16 years in, they're just like, what if we instead uprooted the fundamentals that have underpinned the design of 16 years of champions and map changes and items and everything else? Like, here's another weird one that'll affect every player, whether or not they use WASD. Are we going to start getting more activated items?
My guess is no, because philosophically, League
doesn't do
seems to think that those should be rare, unlike Dota.
Yeah, I agree. In Dota 2, I would say most items, the majority of useful late game items have an activated ability of some kind or another. Even early game items have activated abilities in ways that most stuff in League doesn't. And that's sort of one of the big philosophical differences between the two, which is fascinating to talk about, but that's a different day. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Will, I think some people thought about it. They ran some numbers and they said, we think even with all of this trouble, it's going to be worth doing.
Yeah. I'm so
just straight up and they got to a scenario where they were looking at something and saying, this is worth the time, effort, and opportunity cost.
Yes.
Because instead of putting this in, they could have gone and built a whole other something. And that probably also tells you how much money League is still bringing in.
Oh, yeah.
That they're willing to do this to continue that waterfall, or that huge spigot of waterfall is a better word, of money.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that anyone is that a question that people have, whether League is still profitable?
I don't think. Well, probably casually on the internet.
Yeah.
But that's just because everybody's myopic on the games they play. If you used to play League and you're not playing it anymore, or if you used to play 14 and you're not playing anymore, or WoW, like I think WoW might be the one for a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, I'm sure WoW's still out there, but it can't be that big. And
it's the iceberg
just
problem.
Because you stop playing doesn't mean
it's the iceberg problem, right? We've talked about this on Breakfast a lot too, with like stories that break containment. Right? Stories that make it outside of that incredibly narrow silo of information, right? Like fighting game news that makes it outside of specifically fighting game communities. It's sort of the iceberg problem, right? You see a very small percentage of stuff that gets into your news feed or into your algorithm or whatever. And then there's actually all of this stuff underneath that you can't see. And that's definitely true of League and other live service games.
Yeah. So it was like, this feels like about, unless there's like other things around it, but like, it really is interesting, and we probably won't, but we could do a whole episode at some point on basically talking about how the interaction design of how you interact with the game fundamentally sets a lot of what makes that game special.
Yes.
Like talking about Slay the Spire with how much they reduced the complexity of their input and focused on other things. And, up to League or to, these with all of their like, a high rate of clicks per second, or like old StarCraft or StarCraft 2, like they used to measure pros on basically clicks per second.
Yep.
Or amount of input that could be done because of how complex the game was. Like these are just fundamentally different choices, and they affect what kinds of players can play it.
Yes.
And how they play it. And honestly, even the casual or more hardcore nature of the game, like games that require more clicks per second tend to be more hardcore. Because casual players do that and they're like, this is too much.
Yep. And they determine what games people will and won't pick up. When I pick up Hades 2, I'm going to specifically have to pick it up with a controller, because last time I hurt my hand mashing the mouse, because that's how you had to play Hades 1.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I have certain games I just call controller games where even if I could play them on my PC, I still hook up a controller for it.
Yeah.
It used to just be a console / just PC game, but now that there's good controllers that hook up to your PC, and have been for a while, but it's an interesting.
I use my Switch controller on my PC. It's great. Like,
cool.
Yeah.
When did you switch?
Huh.
But yeah, like it really is the fundamental interaction, and it's not something that is ever that sexy. Like
right.
People don't talk about it, but it is, as a practicing designer for a long time. Even we honestly often don't think it's that exciting, but it's still a thing we pay a lot of attention to.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our conversation on League's Next Big Gamble on WASD. What do you think? If you are a League player, please let us know in the comments. Are you going to switch? Are you going to go out of the PBE and try it? What are your thoughts? Do you think this is great? Do you not care? And before you do that, if it's before 11 a.m. on August 22nd, Eastern time.
11 Eastern, 8 Pacific.
8 Pacific. You should go over and get your Kickstarter. Our Kickstarter runs for like less than 24 hours left. And then we'll stop talking about it, we promise. We're very excited.
And this is the 25, but we're kickstarting our 2026 History Happens Every Day calendar. Really cool art, a history fact every day, links to our videos in there so you can watch it, and supports our channel. This is part of how we keep the lights on, is we sell, other people do other things. We sell history calendars.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know what? I'm here for that.
And now puzzles. We crossed our $70,000.
Oh yeah, our $70,000 goal. If we hit 70, we are committing to doing a physical puzzle of one of the art pieces from either this year or last year. And if the vote's not up, the vote will be up shortly of which one we do.
By the way,
anybody who is pledged to the Kickstarter is allowed to vote.
Did Matt tell you? I've already committed to getting said puzzle and doing it on stream as a work along with chat at some point, because so I'm very excited about this because I want a puzzle. So
actually, all of the puzzles came out of Will finding that plugin last year that let us take the art pieces and break them into puzzles.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it. We did a good number this year as well. And they're fun.
Yep.
I am looking forward to getting my puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you all so very much for joining us. We will be back with breakfast on next week, but not Design Club, because the crew will be at PAX West. There is a Sunday evening panel that you should go see.
Not this Sunday, a couple days from now, but the Sunday after at 6:30 Pacific.
Yes.
Matt and I and a couple of guests will be doing Design Club live, and looking at which one. Hold on.
The new Metal Gear
This is
game.
all Matt's baby.
Yeah, it's
We're
the new Metal Gear
looking at Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater.
Yeah.
The just re-released one, which will re-release like, I think, a week or two before. Actually, that means it probably is coming out right around now. We're going to pop it on and play through for the first time for the first hour of it and talk about it, live design talk as we go.
Yeah, it'll be great. So look for us there. And otherwise, we'll see you here the week after for more Design Club. Thank you all so much for joining. I think that's it for us today. Geoff, say bye to the people.
Bye to the people. Thanks, everybody.